My name is Daniel Reyes. I'm 34 years old, and I live in a small rented house on the edge of Denver, Colorado. I fix cars for a living. My hands are always stained with oil, my back always aches by 6 in the evening, and for most of my life, that was enough for me. But 3 months ago, I stood in a black suit that didn't fit right, in front of a casket that held the only woman who ever made me feel like I mattered, my wife, Claire. And at her funeral, in front of everyone we both loved, her own brother leaned toward me and whispered 5 words that I will never forget. She married beneath her, Daniel. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, staring at the flowers on her casket, swallowing something that felt like fire in my throat. I had no idea that in exactly 11 days, a phone call from a bank in downtown Denver would change everything, and the same people who mocked me that day would be the ones left speechless. But let me take you back. Let me tell you how it all began. 5 years earlier, I was just a mechanic working double shifts at a garage on Colfax Avenue. Claire walked in one rainy afternoon because her car had broken down 2 blocks away. She was wearing a blazer that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and I remember thinking, this woman does not belong in this garage. But she sat on the old bench by the tool cabinet for 3 hours while I fixed her car, and we talked the entire time. About nothing. About everything. She laughed at my terrible jokes. She asked questions about engines like she actually cared about the answers. Claire came from money. Her family owned a chain of financial consulting firms across 3 states. I came from nothing. A small apartment, a single mother who worked 2 jobs, and a habit of fixing broken things because it was the one skill that never failed me. Her family disapproved from day one, especially her older brother Marcus, who ran the family business and made it very clear in every family dinner that he thought I was a phase Claire would eventually grow out of. But Claire never cared what anyone thought. She married me in a small backyard ceremony 2 years later, wearing her grandmother's dress, laughing so hard during our vows that the officiant had to pause. For a while, life was simple. It was ours. It was enough. The red flags didn't come from Claire. They came from everyone around her. At every family gathering, Marcus would ask me questions like, "So, still turning wrenches, Daniel?" with a smile that never reached his eyes. Claire's mother would compliment my work ethic in a tone that somehow made it sound like an insult. I noticed something else too, small moments where Claire would go quiet after visiting her family, like she was carrying something she didn't want to share with me. When I asked, she'd just smile and say, "Don't worry about them, worry about us." Then, 18 months ago, Claire got sick. It started small, fatigue, headaches, nothing alarming. But it got worse, fast. The diagnosis came on a Tuesday afternoon, and within 4 months, I was sitting beside a hospital bed, holding the hand of the woman who had built an entire life with me, watching her fade a little more every single day. Her family visited, but their visits felt more like inspections than comfort. Marcus once pulled me into the hallway and said, "You know she's leaving everything in a mess, right? You should let the family handle her affairs after this. You're not built for that world." I said nothing. I just went back into that room and held Claire's hand until she fell asleep. Claire passed away on a quiet Sunday morning in March. I remember the silence in that hospital room more than anything else, the machines finally still, the sun coming through the blinds like nothing tragic had happened at all. The funeral was 11 days later. Her family insisted on planning most of it, and I let them because I had no energy left to argue about flowers and seating arrangements. I just wanted to say goodbye to my wife. That's when it happened. Standing at the casket, surrounded by Claire's relatives in their expensive black coats, Marcus leaned toward me and said it. "She married beneath her, Daniel. We all know it. I just hope you don't expect anything from this family now that she's gone." A few relatives nearby heard him. Nobody defended me. A couple of them even nodded, like it was a fact everyone had quietly agreed on for years. I walked out of that funeral home alone, got into my truck, and sat in the parking lot for almost an hour before I could drive. I wasn't angry yet. I was just shattered. The weeks after the funeral were the hardest of my life. I went back to work because staying home felt unbearable. Every corner of that house still smelled like her. I stopped answering calls from Claire's family entirely. Marcus tried reaching out twice, but only, I later realized, to ask about the house and whether I was planning to hold on to it or sell it back to the family at a fair price. I remember one night, sitting alone at our kitchen table, going through an old box of Claire's things. I found her handwriting on the back of an old photograph from our wedding day. It said, "Whatever happens, Daniel, you were always enough." I broke down completely that night, not because of Marcus, not because of the funeral comment, but because I realized how much Claire had spent our entire marriage quietly protecting me from a family that never respected either of us. I didn't know yet just how far she had gone to protect me. 11 days after the funeral, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, a Denver area code, but not one saved in my contacts. Mr. Reyes, this is First Meridian Trust and Wealth Management. We need you to come in regarding an account under your late wife's name. I almost didn't go. I assumed it was some paperwork error, or worse, something Marcus had arranged to pressure me about the house, but I went. And what the bank manager told me left me sitting in silence for almost a full minute. Claire had quietly established a private trust nearly 3 years earlier, long before her diagnosis. It held a separate portfolio she had built entirely on her own, apart from the family business, using investments and consulting work she had done independently. The trust was worth just over $4 million, and it was entirely, irrevocably, in my name. The bank manager slid a folder across the table. Inside was a letter Claire had written, dated the same week the trust was created. Daniel, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and my family probably said something cruel to you at my funeral, because they always do. I built this on my own, away from their business, away from their control. This isn't charity. This is proof that you were never beneath anyone. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. I sat in that office and cried for the first time since the hospital. I want to be clear about something. I never wanted revenge. I just wanted peace. But peace, it turns out, doesn't come easily to people like Marcus. Within 2 weeks, Marcus found out about the trust, probably from someone at the bank, or maybe Claire's mother had heard rumors. He called me directly for the first time since the funeral. Daniel, listen, whatever Claire set up, that money should stay within the family structure. Let's talk about folding it into the business. It's what she would have wanted. That's when I understood something clearly. Marcus wasn't grieving his sister. He was calculating an opportunity. I didn't argue with him on the phone. I simply said, let's talk about it at the family gathering next month. I think it's time we clear a few things up. I hung up, and for the first time since Claire passed, I felt something other than grief. I felt purpose. I spent the next few weeks quietly preparing, not out of anger, but out of respect for what Claire had built, and a refusal to let her legacy be twisted into something it wasn't. I met with an estate attorney recommended by the bank, someone with no ties to Claire's family at all. Together, we reviewed every document Claire had left behind. It turned out the trust wasn't just money. It included a private letter authorizing me to release its full existence, and Claire's exact words, to her family whenever I chose. I also learned something the family hadn't expected. Claire had used a portion of her independent portfolio years earlier to quietly buy shares in a separate consulting firm, one that had recently become a direct and more successful competitor to her family's business. She had built something entirely her own, in silence, the same way I fixed broken engines in silence. Nobody in that family had noticed until it was already done. The family gathering was set for the first Sunday of the following month, at her mother's house, the same house where Marcus used to remind me, year after year, that I didn't belong. I decided that Sunday would be different. The gathering was exactly as expected, quiet judgment disguised as small talk. Marcus greeted me with a fake smile and mentioned almost immediately that he'd had his lawyer draft something simple about the trust. I asked the room for a moment of everyone's attention, and I read Claire's letter aloud, every word, exactly as she'd written it. The room went silent. Then I explained calmly what the trust actually contained, including Claire's independent stake in the very firm now competing with the family business. I explained that the trust and everything inside it was mine, permanently, exactly as Claire intended. Marcus's face changed color entirely. He tried to interject, but Claire's mother, for the first time in 5 years, looked at her son and said quietly, "Sit down, Marcus. She was smarter than all of us, and we never once gave her credit for it." Nobody mocked me that day. Nobody called me beneath anyone. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't gloat. I simply stood there, holding the folder that held my late wife's final gift to me, and let the truth speak for itself. I still fix cars for a living. I didn't quit my job, and I didn't move into some new life just because of the money. Claire never wanted me to change. She just wanted the people around us to finally see what she always saw in me. Marcus and I don't speak much anymore, but Claire's mother calls sometimes now, just to talk. Last month, she told me, "You were never beneath our family, Daniel. If anything, our family was lucky you married in." I think about Claire every single day, not because of the money, but because of that letter, because she spent years quietly proving something to a family that never gave her the respect she deserved, and she did it without ever raising her voice. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's this. The loudest people in the room are rarely the strongest ones. Sometimes, the quietest person, the one everyone underestimates, is the one holding all the proof, waiting patiently for the truth to speak for itself.